गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा गिरिधारी राधा गिरिधारी राधे जय जगन्नाथ जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेव जय सुभद्रा जय गिरि गोवर्धन गिरि गोवर्धन गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गौरनिताय 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 जय गौरनिताय जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल नारायण नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवतीर्नैष्टकी Okay, we are today speaking from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 13, verse 24. And this entire chapter is about the description of the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. Just before we move on to the verse, we'll do a recap. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So here so far we've heard about conversation between Vidur and Maitreya Rishi, whereabouts Maitreya Rishi is actually describing the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj, and is been describing about King Anga, his wife Suniti, and their son King Vain, and how King Vain had been a very crooked king, and as a result of which the Brahmanas cursed him. And then King Vena died, and as a result of that, we'll see in the next few verses how the Brahmanas, the sages, they churned the right arm of King Vena, and from which Lord Prithu appeared. So today the verse number is 24. I'll share my screen. One moment. Okay. एतद् आख्याहि मे ब्रह्मन् सुनीतात्मजचेष्टितम् श्रद्धानाय भक्ताय त्वं परावरवित्तमः. Anyone would like to recite that verse?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Etad akkai me Brahman Shunita Chishtitam Shraddhayanasya Bhaktya Tvam Paravara Vittama. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other Prabhu? Anyone else would like to recite that?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I am trying.
Yes, sure.
Etad akkahi me brahman shunitatmaja cheshtitam shraddhanaya bhaktaya tam paravara vittamaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Etadakhayi me brahman shunithatmaja cheshtitam shraddhanaya bhaktaya tam paravara vittamo. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I am trying as well. Hare Krishna. Etadakhahi me brahman shunitha atmajo chestitam shraddhanaya bhaktaya twang paravara vittamaha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. And anyone else? No? Okay. Etad आख्याहि me brahman सुनीतात्मचेष्टितं श्रद्धधानाय भक्ताय त्वं परावरवित्तमः. Anyone would like to recite the synonyms?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Prabhu,
Please.
carry.
Okay, thank you. Etat, all this. Akhahi, please describe. Me, unto me. Brahman, O great Brahmana. Sunita Atmaja, of the sons of Sunita. Vena, Chestitam, activities. Shraddhadhanaya, faithful. Bhaktayo, unto your devotee. Tvam, you. Paravara, with past and future. Vittamana, all well conversant. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Vidur requested Maitreya, "My dear Brahman, you are well conversant with all subject matters, all subjects, both past and future. Therefore, I wish to hear from you all the activities of King Vena. I am your faithful devotee, so please explain this." Purport by His Divine Geshe Prabhupada. Vidur accepted Maitreya as his spiritual master. A disciple always inquires from the spiritual master, and the spiritual master answers the question, provided the disciple is very gentle and devoted. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that by the mercy of the spiritual master, one is blessed with the mercy of the Supreme Lord. The spiritual master is not inclined to disclose all the secrets of transcendental science unless the disciple is very submissive and devoted, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. The process of receiving knowledge from the spiritual master entails submission, inquiry, and service. Submission, inquiry, and service. So, Very nice purport here, by Srila Prabhupada. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakticharu Swamniti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Tamal Krishna Goswamniti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamniti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nisheshinyavadi Paschatya Dishatharine. Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Guru Shripada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamshcha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sakana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parijan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamshcha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvait Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So from this is a very nice point Srila Prabhupada makes about the spiritual master. And just to give a bit of background about King Vena, actually, because one of the questions was in the previous verses was that how come King Vena was such a crooked king when the mother and the father, which is King Anga, and King and his and mother Queen Suniti, were very pious people, personalities, you know. So in relation to that, there's a very nice story from Padma Puran, and says that the Prajapati Anga, son of Atri, was a defender of dharma and a very great personality, and the wife was also a very virtuous person, and they were blessed with a virtuous son of virtuous son Vena. But the king, he became Vena, after becoming king, came under the influence of a Muni who followed a Devata called Arhan, and who followed a vicious and immoral way of life. And by that association, King Vena became crooked. So in Padma Puran, Maitri Rishi is actually saying, he's asking this question to Parashar Muni. He says, why did the sages have to churn King Vena's hand? And how did King Vena became crooked? What was the reason behind it? You know, despite the parents being very virtuous, personalities. So Parashar Muni says actually that Mrityudev had the first child, his daughter name was Suniti, and she was married to Anga, as we've already read in the past verses. And Suniti gave birth to Vena. Vena had all the faults of his maternal grandfather Mrityu, and hence was a devil-like in nature. At the time of coronation, King Vena had declared, I am God, I am the Yajna Purush, hence in future no one shall perform any yajna and donate dakshina. The sages praised him and said, O king, we speak about the benefit of you and your subjects, you know. Through grain yajna we shall worship omnipotent Lord Hari. Thus pleased, he will grant you all the desires. So, O king, don't stop us from performing yajnas. In the kingdom of which kings Lord Hari is worshipped as the presiding deity of yajnas, he fulfills all the desires. The king Vena said, who is greater than me, and even venerable, whom you regard as the presiding deity of the yajnas? All the deities like Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Vayu are all present in the body of the king. Hence, the king has all the virtues of these deities. Therefore, do what I say. Such as a woman's duty is to serve her husband, similarly it is the duty of all of you to obey my dictation. Obey me, simply. The sages tried to convince King Vena repeatedly, but it all went in vain. At last, um, he did not agree to the proposal, and the sages killed him. Now, immediately after killing the king, the sages saw clouds of dust rising all around, and it was revealed that upon inquiry that the subjects of a kingless kingdom have resorted to plundering and looting each other. And it was because of that stampede that clouds of dust were rising. The sages then churned the left thigh of the dead king with force and produced an ugly black man. It was he was feeling excited and asked the sages what he should do. So the sages told him to sit down, which is nishid. Hence, he became known as Nishad, and his progeny came to be known as Nishadgan. Appearance of Nishad did away with all the sins of Vena. So Vena was a sum total. Nishad was actually the sum total of all the evil beings like Nishadas, Kiritas, Bhils, Nahalakas, Brahmars, Pulins, and Mlechas. So the sages were relieved that the king was relieved of sinners from his body, and thereafter the sages then churned the king's right hand and produced progressive Prithu, but they churned the right hand with the idea to produce a son from Vena's body known as Vainea. Vena's son is Vainea, and in that case, Prithu Maharaj appeared from the body with radiant body was radiating like fire. And as soon as Prithu Maharaj appeared, he had bow and arrow and shield of Lord Shiva, all of them with full coverage, everything with him. And Lord Shiva descended from the heavens, and all of the subjects felt extremely joy. So with the birth of a pious son, Vena attained a position in the heaven. Now, just going back to a bit of a story behind Vena's appearance. How did Vena appear actually? So again, this is from Padma Puran. It says that Sunita, the mother of Vena, used to generally assist her father Mrityu and spend a carefree life in the company of her friends. Once she visited a forest and found a Gandharva Kumar called Shushanka and started teasing him while he was in tapasya. He was doing austerity. In fact, she repeated the routine of teasing him and even beating him on his neck. So he admonished her and went away. Then later on, Sunita went back home and then confessed to her father as to how she behaved badly with the Gandharva boy and how he controlled his anger. Now, Mrityu, the father, did not say anything, so presuming that the father's silence was an approval of her action, Sunita repeated this mischief with the Gandharva boy once again. And the Gandharva this time cursed her. He said, whenever you should get married, you will give birth to a notorious and misdirected boy who would harass the world as an evil king. So this time Sunita really got frightened and reported that the entire happening came to her father Mrityu. And the father actually advised Sunita to repent and to perform some sort of austerity to please Lord Vishnu, to be able to get out from this curse. So while moving about all along with her companions, one day Apsara, the damsels from the heavenly planets, Rambha, found Sunita performing tapasya and got the full background of Gandharva boy's curse from Sunita's friends. She advised Sunita not to worry, as Lord Hari, whom she was meditating upon sincerely, was indeed very kind and would certainly find a way out for her from the mess that she had got into. And then she further said that she was indeed certain dormant qualities in Sunita's family background, of Mrityu, which should be promoted and nurtured further, instead of brooding over what happened. Qualities were good feature, character, truthfulness, etiquette, good and noble tradition, virtue, gentle femininity, and so forth. Um, so, having said this, Ramba bestowed Vidyabala, strength of knowledge, upon Sunita, and this boosted Sunita's morale. Ramba enabled Sunita's meeting with Atri Putra, which is the son of Atri, Anga, and then performed the Gandharva Vivah, the wedding. And as far as Anga was concerned, he performed tapasya to Lord Vishnu and secured a boon of getting a son of qualities of Indra, son of the qualities of Indra, and was looking for a suitable wife like Sunita, so as recommended by Rambha. And that's how uh, uh, Anga met Suniti by the arrangement of Rambha. And as a result of that, Vena was born, who had the qualities similar to Indra, but again had all these mischievous qualities that it was as a result of the curse of um, the Gandharva Kumar. Srila Prabhupada mentions that in this case here, Vidur has submissively submitted to um, Maitreya and inquired about King Vena, and also about how all of this has happened. What was the reason behind um, the appearance of Prithvi Maharaj as well. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that we must surrender. We must surrender to a spiritual master, approach a spiritual master, and inquire submissively from the Guru. In this case, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 34 says, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. And the same thing is mentioned in the Mundaka Upanishad. Tad Vijnanartham Sagurum Evabhigachet Samit Panni Strotriyam Brahmasnishtham. In order to learn the transcendental science, one must approach the bona fide spiritual master in disciplic succession, who is fixed in the absolute truth. So the foremost process is to approach, and of course inquire submissively. The Lord advised us to approach the the spiritual master, the Guru, in the disciplic succession from the Lord Himself. And one must approach a spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is a secret of advancement in spiritual life. Satisfaction of the spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission constitute a proper combination of spiritual understanding. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. So it's very important for us to be submissive. And we've seen that how during Prabhupada's preaching, all these different Prabhupada disciples submitted to Prabhupada and followed Prabhupada's instructions as Prabhupada guided them. As a result of them, they were successful in preaching, and spreading the movement all over the world. So disciples must be very, very submissive, and serve the spiritual master. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master, and when we see the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. Srila Prabhupada said that both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. We should not just blind follow someone. We must follow under the guidance of other devotees, senior devotees, Vaishnavas, and the spiritual master. Hearing submissively is very important, and we must get a clear understanding from him. And again and again, emphasized submission and service in inquiries. One of our spiritual master is by nature very kind to his disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to surrender service, the reciprocation of the knowledge and inquiries becomes perfect. So it's very important. The very first step is to approach and submit. And the next step, basically, I would say another one of the other important points is fully surrender to the order of the spiritual master. And our spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender. And one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant without false prestige. Surrender is one of the qualities of humility, in fact, and it is the first quality of Vaishnava. So humility actually means to surrender to the order of the spiritual master, to follow his instructions without any objection. Just do what he asks. We've seen how Srila Prabhupada's disciples had fully surrendered to Srila Prabhupada and followed his instructions without any difficulty, without any objection. In fact, there were very little objections. There were some objections sometimes, but there were not objections such. They were just arguments about, I would say not arguments. It was more like confirming whether this is right thing to do, and in that way, after they got clarity, they would perform the activities, whatever instruction Prabhupada gave them. Sridhar Swami, in fact, confirms in his commentary that the first step, that one must first surrender to the spiritual master. Then the process of devotional service will develop. The foremost step is to surrender. We must surrender, and then, of course, we will develop the spiritual life. One must not surrender to the spiritual master, but not only surrender, but also render service to him. And when the spiritual master is pleased, as we read in the purport, then the spiritual master will explain the transcendental subject matter clearly. A challenge before the spiritual master should be avoided if one is all interested in learning the Vedic instructions in depth. We have seen in the past sometimes people challenge, some devotees, but that is not the right process. Even sometimes we've seen videos where some devotees, not devotees, but someone in the audience would actually ask in a challenging way, why this, why that, who has seen God, and how do you know whatever you're saying is true or not? Someone has written this and that. That is not the process. We must submit. If we want to learn something, we must submit. Just like if we're going to school, we must be able to submit ourselves to the teacher who's teaching us, and then we'll be able to understand. Of course, we can discuss, but we must not have an argumentative mood. So we must be humble. Humility is important, but we must do it in such a way that we do not encroach on the rights of others. Just like in this case here, Sunita was going on and teasing the Gandharva. We do our devotional service first, but we should not disturb others. We must please the spiritual master without disturbing others. This is a point Srila Prabhupada makes in relation to surrender to the Guru. We must also have implicit faith in the spiritual master. We read this in Svetashvata Upanishad. Yasya devi para bhaktir yatha deva tatha guru tasyaitha kathiyartham prakashante mahatmanah. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of the Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. It's a very important verse. We must have implicit faith, not just faith, but implicit faith, full faith. And when we have that, then all the imports of the Vedic knowledge automatically gets revealed. Shakopaz makes a point that one should understand the spiritual master to be as good as I am, said the Lord. So the Lord here makes it sense that spiritual master should be understood as good as me. The spiritual master is actually the sum totals of all the demigods. That is, the Acharya has been identified with God himself. The conclusion is that the spiritual master who is authorized and empowered by Krishna and his own guru should be considered as good as Supreme Personality of God himself. That is the verdict of Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur when he writes in Guru Ashtakam, Shakshat Dharitvena Samasta Shastraya. As Hari is free to act as he likes, the empowered spiritual master is also free. So the spiritual master is to be worshipped as good as Hari, but he is not spiritual Hari. He is a representative of the Supreme Lord. And as such, which is the reason why we honor spiritual master all the time, because the spiritual master is guiding us, he's providing knowledge to us. We must have this submission, proper etiquette to honor the spiritual master. When we have this, then again, as I said earlier, that and Prabhupada and Acharyas explained that we will advance spiritually. And also, we must render service. We must we must approach, we must inquire, we must fully surrender, and we must render service to Guru. Tushyayam sarva bhutatma Guru shushruya taratyanjanu bhavarnavam. Simply by rendering service to the spiritual master, one crosses the ocean of existence and returns home, back to Godhead. So thus, he gradually sees the Supreme Lord face to face and enjoys life in association with the Lord. The ultimate goal of yoga is to come in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless this point is achieved, one's so-called yoga practice simply labor without benefit. In Chaitanya Charita, in fact, throughout the scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam and Vedas, Krishna has said that those who are devotees of me, then they are not my devotees, but those who are the devotees of my devotee are my actual devotees. So that means that we have to be, who are the devotees? We have to be the devotees of the spiritual master. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, when the Thakur says, Amar Bhaktir Puja, Amar Hoite Baro. Amar Bhaktir Puja, Amar Hoite Baro. My devotees' worship is bigger than mine. So, Bhakti Puja, worship the devotees is advocated everywhere. And we must have, by the mercy of the Guru, one can do wonders. We have this nice verse that we find in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatam ham mande Shri Guru Dina Taranam. By the mercy of the Guru, even a dumb man can become the greatest orator, and even a lame man can cross mountains, as advised by Lord Brahma. One should remember this Shastric injunction if one desires success in life. So in this case here, by the mercy, anything can happen. By the mercy of the Guru, let me say, dumb man can become the greatest orator, and lame man, Langayate Girim, can climb across the mountain. In relation to this, very nice kind of verse here from Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th Canto, chapter 723, whereas Lord Indra, Lord Brahma says to demigods, he says, "Oh Indra, your enemies, your demons, the demons were extremely weak because of their disrespect towards their guru Shukracharya. But since they have now worshipped Shukracharya with great devotion, they have again become powerful. By the devotion to Shukracharya, they have increased their strength so much now that they are even able to seize my abode from me." So Lord Brahma wanted to point out to the demigods that by the strength of the Guru, one can become the most powerful within this world. And by the displeasure of the Guru, one can lose everything. This is confirmed by the song of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the Gurvashtakam. Yasya prasadat bhagavad prasado, yasya prasadan gati kutopi. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one is benedicted by the mercy of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. So although the demons were insignificant in comparison to Lord Brahma, but because they the strength of Guru, they became powerful. So by the mercy of Shukracharya, the demons, the asuras, they become powerful and that they were able to seize Brahmalok from Lord Brahma. So by the mercy of Guru, anything can happen. We've seen this time and time from different acharyas' life, how these acharyas, by the mercy of their Guru, have done wonders. Classic example is Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was able to preach throughout the world, open 108 temples within a short period of time, which was considered to be kind of impossible. But it was only possible by the mercy of spiritual master. And by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada always had his gurus always in his always he was always remembering his Guru Maharaj. He was always associated with Guru Maharaj, and he was always working towards fulfilling the mission, the instruction of his Guru Maharaj. And only by the mercy of his Guru and the previous acharyas, Srila Prabhupada was able to preach throughout the world. It was an impossible task, and at an old age, despite all the different setbacks, Srila Prabhupada succeeded. And again, as we from this verse, we find that by the mercy, anything can happen. There's another nice story about how about Ramanujacharya and his disciple who was illiterate. So one day, every time Ramanujacharya would speak Katha, and all his disciples would sit down and listen to him. And right at the back, there used to be one of his disciples who was not illiterate. He would sit down there and listen to his Guru Maharaj. One day, Ramanujacharya was sitting to speak, and he was waiting for everyone to get seated. And some of the disciples, senior disciples, they said, Swamiji Maharaj, we're all here now, you can start. Some Ramanujacharya said, "No, I'm waiting for one of my disciples who hasn't arrived yet. I'm waiting for him." And he mentioned by name. So he said, "Oh, that person is not literate, he doesn't understand anything. Just go over his head, so we can start." So anyway, after some time, this disciple who was illiterate came, and he begged forgiveness because he got late. So he sat down and he listened to the katha. After he had finished, then he instructed his disciple, that illiterate disciple, to speak And out of amazement, uh, everyone's amazed to see how this illiterate disciple was able to speak both Shastra and speak so wonderfully. Uh, and then they realized that actually we sometimes think that someone is illiterate, someone doesn't know anything, but only by the mercy of the Guru. And in this case, we see that by the mercy of Ramanujacharya, this disciple who was illiterate uh, was able to speak profoundly, very nicely on the topics of spiritual matter. Um, and again, it's a very nice story. So when we serve the Guru Maharaj, we humble. Then Guru guides us. He guides us. Sort of tells us what to do, what not to do, what to ask from the Lord, what not to do. Ask or how to serve, whatever, everything. The Guru reveals to us everything. Sometimes when the Guru sees his disciple is not qualified enough, the Guru would not reveal everything to that disciple. And we see this in the Bible where Jesus Christ says, I have more to tell you, but your ears cannot bear them now. That means he had wanted to tell more to his disciples, but they were not qualified enough to be able to understand or receive that knowledge. Um, so this again is a nice story about Ramanujacharya, um, about how Ramanujacharya uh, guided his disciple. So there was once a great. There was one time there was one of his disciples of Ramanujacharya. His name is Kuresh, and he uh, was very dedicated to Sri Ramanujacharya. And they were preaching in the in one of the kingdoms where the king was from the Chola dynasty. I'm not sure the name, but and that king, the Chola king, was actually a Shiva devotee. He was a Shaivat, and he was getting angry that Ramanujacharya and Sri Vaishnavas was preaching. Vaishnavism means kingdom, so he wanted to plan to kill Ramanujacharya by inviting him for a debate in his court. So to save the Guru, um, Ramanujacharya, Kuresh went and represented Ramanujacharya in the court uh, of the Chola king. And when he went there, instead of killing him, the Chola king basically took out the eyes of Kuresh. So Kuresh was blinded. So later when Sri Ramanujacharya returned back and he asked Kuresh, and he saw that he was blinded, so he asked Kuresh to go to the Lord and get back his vision. And so Kuresh was actually serving in Kanchi Sri Varadaraj Swami. And this deity is in Chennai, Tamil Nadu. And every time we worship, the Lord would appear. So every time we would pray, the Lord would appear, and the Lord would ask him for a boon. Now, Kuresh would always never ask anything for himself. So when the Lord appeared to him, he said to the Lord, "My dear Lord, please forgive the king and other people who committed offenses to me and to my Guru Maharaj Ramanujacharya. So please forgive them." Um, so like this, he was asking for everyone, praying for everyone else, but not asking for anything for himself. So when Ramanujacharya came to know about this, he asked Kuresh to pray to the Lord in the following way. He said, "Pray that my Guru's property has a defect, and I request you to please fix it, correct it." So, taking the instruction of Ramanujacharya, next time when Kuresh had the darshan of the Lord, he prayed in the same way that Ramanujacharya had told him. The Lord was very pleased with the prayer and granted the vision back to Kuresh. So Kuresh was not asking anything for himself, but the Guru, was instructing him to pray in this way. The Guru had to force him to ask in a particular way. And since has given everything and surrendered to Ramanujacharya, he was actually the property of his Guru. And so that the property has a defect, which means that the eyes, he was blind, so he had no eyes. And thus Ramanujacharya induced Quresh to pray to the Lord and get back his vision. So from this example we can see that Quresh was fully surrendered to his Guru, and the Guru guided him on how to um, pray to the Lord. And he actually said that, you know, from this we also see that Quresh was actually, because he was fully surrendered, he was actually property of the Guru, and which is the reason why he asked to pray to the Lord in such a way. So, in summary, we must approach as one of our spiritual master in disciplic succession and inquire submissively. We must fully surrender to the order of the spiritual master, and we must have implicit faith in the spiritual master. And when we have that, will render service to the spiritual master in a loving way. And when we serve the spiritual master by the mercy of the Guru, we can become very powerful. We can do wonders. We can, in our case, we can basically become successful in our preaching mission. We can advance in Krishna consciousness, rapidly. So that is my conclusion. Anyone would like to comment or has got any questions? Any comments?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I can't hear you. Hare Krishna.
Please unmute yourself. I think it's muted.
Who was it? Was it Abhash Prabhu, right?
No, Prabhuji, I was not trying. I think Tushta Chaitanya Prabhu was trying.
Oh, okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Yes, beautiful explanation you made regarding Bina's appearance. Because I was while I was going through this, I was just wondering how such things happens when everything is in place and something unwanted happens. There must be something which is out of our imagination. You nicely explained the appearance of Bina, though he is from a very elevated king and queen, but still by the association he got this quality, and that quality influenced the whole kingdom.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
The second part, and then how you nicely described about the position of a spiritual master and the position of a devotee, how they interrelate with each other, and what is the right way to approach the spiritual master through proper attitude, proper etiquette. So nice explanation. Thank you, Prabhuji, for enlightening such a good explanation. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Association is very important. Of course, in this case here, King Vena had made association of this Muni, and also Queen Suniti had a curse as well, cursed by the Gandharva, that he will get a child who will be notorious. So this all both of them came together, and in fact, we can also see how um, in other cases as well, are the other asuras, how they became uh, demons uh, because of bad association. So sometimes from bad association, we become bad, and good association makes us become good. That's why we have to distinguish who to associate with. Who can help us in our spiritual life. Anyone who kind of takes us away from Krishna, we must avoid the association. Anyone who engages us in the service of Krishna, who enthuses us in the service of Krishna and the spiritual master, must always associate with such devotees.
Yeah, that's Srila Prabhupada was explaining on verse 21 that everything gets upside down in the family even when such thing happens, and because the association makes a lot of differences that we need to understand. Even it is a warning for all of us who are practicing this spiritual advancement, spiritual uplifting. Is to be very careful to whom to associate and whom not to, because this ultimately influences the whole advancement or the whole process of life. Whatever is cultured in the beginning can be destroyed if the association is not properly done. So it
That's
is,
that's
yeah,
true.
it is a caution for all of us. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dhanapana?
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for nicely explaining the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple, and particularly the process, how to do that, and the main importance that without the mercy of the spiritual master, no one can expect to do any progress. And by pleasing only the spiritual master and under his proper guidance, one can approach, and the progress of spiritual in the spiritual path is for a particular devotee uh, is directed by the spiritual master. He knows what is where the person is and what he has to do and how you can approach the final goal. And in our Guru Ashtakam, as you have told nicely, that without Darsha Prasada, Bhagavat Prasada, the mercy of the Supreme Lord can be obtained only with the mercy of the spiritual master. And one who has not been able to please the spiritual master has no chance of going back toward it or see the Supreme Lord. And in fact, he is the representative of the Supreme Lord. We should always make all effort to please the spiritual master. Everything possible. I mean, it should be the life and death of a person who wants to progress spiritually to please the spiritual master. Because without him, without pleasing him, nothing is achievable in the spiritual path. And you have nicely pointed out for that, and thank you for bringing that point to all of us. And this is the taking point for me. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Krishna. Anyone else? Yes.
Just a couple of points. One of the takeaway from this verse, and you're giving a background of how Vinaya appeared, is that Suniti was not corrected by her father when she obstructed the devotional service of the Gandharva. Father, just being silent, did not correct her. So it is important. Sometime somebody may be getting off the track. If the spiritual master or the person in charge, the guiding mentor, if they do not correct the person in the first place, it can lead to very difficult spiritual life. So this is one of the takeaways. The other one is that in this verse we see that Vidura is requesting Maitre in a very submissive mood, just as you mentioned. He said, therefore I wish to hear from all the activities of King Vena. I am your faithful devotee, so please explain this to me. Such a submission that the Maitre will become very pleased to impart this knowledge. And we see this thing in the beginning of Bhagavatam, in the Canto 1, Chapter 1. We see approaching Sutta Goswami by all the sages at Naimisharanya. They are also asking Sutta Goswami to explain in a similar mood. Let me just read the translation of verse 8 from Canto 1, Chapter 1. It says, and because you are submissive, this is the sages of Naimisharanya asking Sutta Goswami, and because you are submissive, your spiritual masters have endured you with all the favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. Therefore, you can tell us all that you have scientifically learned from them. It says, O Sutta Goswami, you are the acquainted, being the eldest Vedantis, being the eldest learned Vedantis. O Sutta Goswami, you are acquainted with the knowledge of Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of Godhead. And you also know that other sages are fully versed in all kinds of physical and metaphysical knowledge. It says, please, therefore, being blessed with many years, explain to us in an easily understandable way what you have ascertained to be the absolute and the ultimate good for all people in general. So the way the sages in the Naimisharanya approached Sutta Goswami headed, it was so gentle that Sutta Goswami became very pleased, and then the whole Vedas came into being. So I guess, as you mentioned, the submission inquiry, service to the spiritual master, and by that process, one get the mercy of the spiritual master, and one can get the knowledge within the heart. So thank you very much for emphasizing this point. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. So yes, it's very important, as Prabhu mentioned, that Suniti needed to be corrected by her father, but her father's silence, this actually goes to us as well. I mean, when we see someone needs to be corrected, we should correct. But I think the process has to be in a way that the person doesn't feel offended. Don't correct someone. I think one of the devotees was saying, devotees I was listening to, he said, as devotees, we should guide or, correct other devotees, but we should do that in private so that the person doesn't get offended. A lot of times, we've seen sometimes, senior devotees, correct someone in front of other people, and that may not be very good. But if you do it in private, that person will appreciate that you've corrected me, you've guided me, you've helped me understand what I should be doing, how I should be doing. So it's very important to correct. Of course, the spiritual master is independent; he can guide, chastise in front of everyone. But we're not spiritual masters, so we should be very careful how we correct someone as well. But correction is always important. We should not be just allowing it to happen. Otherwise, people think that's okay. It's okay to do it. So yes, thank you so much. And throughout the scriptures, it's all about conversation, submission. We see here about Vidur, Maitreya, and then Sutta Goswami. Then we have Parikshit Maharaja and being submissive to Sukadeva Goswami. So all throughout, it's all submission. And when you submit to the spiritual master, then you get the knowledge. You get the mercy. So that is what we should be aspiring all to do. Thank you. Is anyone else would like to comment before I finish?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just again, I was just reading that translation, purport. That's a very good sentence. In the middle, the spiritual master is not inclined to disclose all the secrets of transcendental science unless the disciple is very submissive and devoted. It's very, very,
Absolutely.
very, very important.
You must be devoted and
yeah, it's very important. So sometimes we don't get the right full information because spiritual master can very well understand the inner feeling of the devotee. So accordingly, fits the devotee, what is the way of approach.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very, very important, the approach.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
All right. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for joining in. Um,
Thank you very
bye.
much, Prabhuji, for your lecture, and hope to see you in future also.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Prabhu.
thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, guys, Hiranyagarbha Prabhu ki jai,
Keep up.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Gaur Bhakti Goptam Hari Go. Panchakalpadrubhesha.
Patitanam
Krishna
Pavanebhyo
Vyo Namane.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki
Ki
jai.
jai.
Hare Krishna.